let's get into some wide receiver panic here. But before we do, I just want to quickly call up this graphic first from Hayden Winks that he shared last week. So obviously this is just the first. Not week 8, of course. This was heading into last week. But Hayden says, as usual, comments are crazy about wide receivers having bad games. You'll sleep a lot better once you come to grips about how volatile scoring is week to week. These are the top 50 wide receivers removing injured games. Up, down, up, down, up, down. Take a breath. I could not agree. If you're watching this on YouTube, if you're not watching on YouTube, it's worth just looking at the graphic to see the amount of just green, red, up and down, up and down. That is just how this position is. I say it on the show all the time. I just thought that was a great visual representation of what I mean when this position just, and it's, I hate to say it. I'm not going to actually say what I said on social media because this is a family show. Stuff happens at this position. Just stuff happens. And sometimes the explanation could be as simple as that when it comes to this position. So that's just a level set here before we get into some of these wide receivers where we can call back to this because it's going to be instructive. But first, submission to the wide receiver panic meter here. And I think this is history, Boone. You've been on the show now for just this season. I think this is the first time ever this happened. We got history made. Our first ever mid-game panic submission comes in here. Greetings, Coping Corner Commissioners. This is sent in from Krabby Fantasy Football Fan. Greetings, Coping Corner Commissioners. Courtland Sutton needs to be slammed into the Coping Corner until Sean Payton leaves Denver. He is no longer Mr. Consistency we once knew. He is now a touchdown scratch-off ticket like Will Fuller or Rashad Bateman. I love Rashad Bateman, but come on, guys. When Troy Franklin and Pat Bryant are getting designer plays made for them and Sutton is just running around, it's not a fun experience to have him on my fantasy team. Do I need to treat the Broncos games the same as Jags, Jets, and Browns games and just look at the box score when the game is over? Sincerely, Krabby Fantasy Football Fan. This was shocking to me to see mid-game on Courtland Sutton. Boone, I think the consistency of Sutton is a little bit understated. Like, he does have floor games. He's had a few this year, but I don't know. What is our level of panic on Courtland Sutton after getting like 67 yards last week?
I mean, I'm not sure what people's expectations are for this guy, but you nailed it. Like, he has been pretty consistent this season. I don't even necessarily view him as like Mr. Consistency, but you look at his numbers from this year, like his last 5 games, 118 yards and a touchdown, 81 yards and a touchdown, 99 yards. He had one game, 17 yards. Okay, that's not great. But then 87 yards. And then this week, even though I know it was sent mid-game, so maybe he didn't, have these stats yet because he did a lot of it in the second half, but he had 67 yards in this game. And 67 yards on top of the fact that he had a touchdown called back on OPI, right, on offensive pass interference. He had a drop in the end zone. He could have had a touchdown there. So there was opportunities for this to be a much, much bigger game. I still see him. Yeah, he's not a wide receiver 1 in fantasy. He has that kind of ceiling, but week to week, he's not going to be ranked there unless he's in a really, really good matchup. And we thought this was going to be a good matchup for him. He didn't blow the doors off in it. It happens sometimes, like you said, but he's a very good wide receiver 2 in fantasy. So I'm not sure what the expectation is from people. I mean, I would recommend, like, if people are sending in like mid-game panic meter questions, one of the things I do is at 1:00 or whenever the games start, I shut all the apps down initially. I don't want to look for at least like the first quarter. Like, don't freak out because there's a ton of game left, right? Like, the guys can blow up in the second half. Like, it's fine. Like, don't go crazy and panic from like, minute 1 of a game. There's a lot of time. So just relax, enjoy the game, and then start to check your fantasy teams like crazy, which you're never really going to do. It's just don't do it like too early because you'll watch and you'll see the projections change and you'll get really worried.
Yeah.
You don't need to because there's a lot of time in games, and Courtland Sutton still came through and had a pretty good performance for you. Yeah, it wasn't a huge game like we necessarily projected, but it was still an okay game. 67 yards is not going to lose you your week. So no panic for me on Courtland Sutton. I think he's still a very good receiver, even though he's in an offense where they get other guys involved. They have a rotation of the other wideouts. We see other guys pop off, and some of the other younger guys are coming on, but I don't think they're a threat to Courtland Sutton as the number 1 guy in that offense.
Yeah, 8.7 points in half PPR here. Like that's fine. You can get away with that. It's actually his only mid game of the year. Usually the two down games has been fewer than 3 points, which, like I said, that's where I think the consistency is a little overrated from him, because he's going to have big weeks. But I mean, he's been a perfect fit in Sean Payton's offense as that X receiver. I actually look like Troy Franklin's been coming on a little bit with touchdowns. Pat Bryant made it in the end zone. I think that could be helpful for the offense overall because they need like a second threat. So, no panic for me on Courtland Sutton. I'm echoing Boone's statement there. And we'll talk more throughout the week about Troy Franklin's kind of emergence in this room. But we're going to toss to our first break here. We're going to continue with wide receivers after the break and a certain Chargers wideout and an update on the pen meter. We'll get into that right after this. All right, we are back. We're continuing to talk through some wide receiver submissions to the People's Panic Meter, starting with this one from Eric on Quentin Johnson. Shout out to Eric. Sometimes I think the TNF players get forgotten here. Sends in, love the show. Finally getting this one in early. I put a lot of trade requests last week and ended up getting BTJ and Aaron Jones for Quentin Johnston. I had to shed some players after Aaron came off bye, but my league mate didn't accept until after the Thursday night game when QJ didn't even get a target. I was he kind of goes on and on about some of his individual players, which appreciate that. Says, please, cartographer of the route tree, shed some light on these lightning bolts here. What's going on in the Chargers wide receiver room? Side note, did mention that RJ Harvey, he had RJ Harvey for the last 3 weeks and then released him to make some roster judgments. So said, shout out to anyone who got the RJ Harvey desperation. And I wanted to give a shout out to the folks who sent in the RJ Harvey lineups. I totally forgot. I said, hey, send me your RJ Harvey lineups on the show on Sunday. And then this morning I see a bunch of RJ Harvey lineups in my mentions. Like, oh, right, I did say that. So shout out to you folks who sent me that. But on this question here, what the hell are we doing with Quentin Johnson? What is the panic on QJ after a hot start to this season?
I mean, first we have to acknowledge the pen meter is up there, and you are looking quite good in that.
Baby.
I don't think we have any panic when it comes to the pen meter right now for you. So hats off to you on that one. For QJ, it's total panic right now in my mind. And first up, before we get into this, actually, let's address something from that question. If someone is going in and accepting a trade after a game is played and after a guy has like a bad performance, I don't know about you, Harmon. I think that's kind of shady. Like, I've seen trades go down in leagues where like a player gets injured and then someone goes and accepts a trade with the injured player because it was just sitting out there. And I know technically that this is why I do this. After like 24 hours, if I don't get a response, I revoke it. I pull that trade back, that offer. I don't want to leave things sitting out because I know things like this could happen. But as long as the other manager was okay with this trade going through, that's fine. But to me, I don't think it's fair game to just go accept a trade after the game start, regardless. For QJ, total panic. And we're just seeing that Oronde Gadsden's coming on at tight end. He's basically a big wide receiver anyway. That's kind of QJ's thing. There's another situation where QJ had an injury, right? So is he 100% healthy? Did they rush him back? Might not be quite the same guy that he was early in the season health-wise, so that could be a factor here. There's just a lot of things going on, but it has to be total panic. I mean, we have a 3-game sample now where he's been held under 40 yards. Like, that's huge. And yes, he can still get there certain weeks with touchdowns. Yes, he is still going to have some boom games, but we just have so many hands calling for the ball in this offense now. And I don't think the Oronde Gadsden thing is just a flash in the pan. I think this guy is a legit asset in real life and in fantasy. So I am very, very worried. I think it's total panic on QJ. I also think, and I'm just adding on to the question here, but I also think it's kind of total panic on Keenan Allen because his snaps were way down in this game. I think he's starting to look more like he's just a wide receiver 3 flex option, a guy who probably needs a touchdown to come through for you. I'm worried about those guys, but it all comes back to Ladd McConkey kind of reestablishing himself as the number 1 receiver there. Oronde Gadsden establishing himself as a legit weapon at tight end. And that pushes these other receivers into a range where they're a lot more risky for fantasy.
Yeah, Ladd McConkey the last 3 weeks leads the team in routes, leads the team with 34 targets. He's making it happen here. So I think that, look, he is the best. He's the best receiver on the team. He's the best pass catcher on the team is Ladd McConkey. So this is why I said it was going to normalize. This is the whole point of the stupid pen comment, is that he's the best player. He was playing great on film. Now the targets are going his way. That doesn't mean like QJ's not going to pop back up. Keenan's not going to pop back up. Oronde Gadsden's real. Like that. I'm a little bit more only some panic on QJ, but maybe my expectations were just a little bit more realistic on QJ. That these last 3 weeks have obviously been hellacious, but he is coming back from the injury, and I think he's going to have moments towards the end of the season. But your Keenan Allen point is interesting too, because Rondé Gadsden is 109 routes the last 3 weeks, 92 for Keenan. With Keenan at this stage, he's never going to be a full-time player. And Gadsden kind of took some of those layup looks from him against the Vikings defense, where I thought Keenan might get some of those layup targets. But shout out to Keenan Allen, having him and his wife having a great time at the Chargers Halloween party with Justin Herbert and Madison Beer. If people have not seen the picture that I shared this on my Twitter page, they can check that out. Keenan's having a good time. Even he's not having a good time in your fantasy football lineup. So no, I'm not too concerned about Keenan. He's still getting it done in one way, that's for sure. On Rondé Gadsden, we got this question from the YouTube chat. Are you guys starting Gadsden over like wide receiver 3s and running back 2s? I'm assuming they have a tight end like Tucker Kraft or something, and then they want to flex Gadsden. Where are you at with the Rondé Gadsden as a flex player idea?
Wide receiver or running back 2 probably depends on the week in terms of buys. Like last week when it was by Mageddon, perhaps you were going to start him over some RB2s. I don't think in a normal week I would do that, but wide receiver 3s, all those flex options down there, I would definitely put him over those guys. Like I said, I think he is a legit asset, and I think they realize that and they're feeding him, and we'll see how defenses adjust here in the coming weeks. But yeah, I definitely would be playing him almost any way I could in my lineup, but don't get too cute and don't start to bump down like, wide receiver 2s or even maybe top 30 guys. Once you get outside of that, I definitely think you could start to consider him. And I will also say, and I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, Harmon, but I was looking up at one point, there are some like candy pens that you can buy out there, some edible pens. I was going to get one sent to you, but we have gone down a road now where I think you're going to be free and clear. So yeah, we don't need to send that to you and scare you now. But if you make it out of this without having to eat the pen, we should get that pen like bronzed or put up on the wall. We got to frame it somehow so we remember this.
It's just a crappy pen. Like it's the one I hold literally every show. It's because I'm an idiot and I need to be holding something. Anyways, I'm more just some panic on QJ. I think he's going to give you some weeks, but if you viewed him as a locked in every week consistent player, he has truly broken out into a new level this year, but this is still a crowded room and Ladd McConkey is just the better player. I see a lot of cope from people about like, oh, well, QJ is the first rounder. Okay, give me a break, bro. Come on. QJ is also a guy who was not even like playable in his first couple of years. So shout out to him for improving legitimately, but he's still not the number one on this team. And I think that we're pretty set there. All right. Next question comes in from Daniel on the Saints pass catchers. Hey guys, love the show. Just wanted to ask, are the bond temps no longer rulising? I don't even know what this means.
Les bon temps roulés. Come on, Harmon. Les bon temps roulés.
All right, well, bro, you can read it then. I don't know what that means.
So laissez les bon temps rouler is, I speak French. I'm the Canadian background, right? I got the French thing going. Laissez les bon temps rouler, let the good times roll. That's all that means, Harmon. So all right,
well, you could have said that before the show to not make me look like an idiot on the internet, which I have no problem doing myself. Come on.
So, all right, I'll read it for you. Hi, guys. Love the show. Just wanted to ask, are the bon temps no longer rouléing in New Orleans? What do we do with Olave, Kamara, and Shaheed rest of season? Obviously, we already talked about Kamara, so we're going to look at the receivers here. I don't know if you want to chime in, Harmon, but for me, I do have some panic on Rashid Shaheed. I don't think I have any panic on Chris Olave, though. Like, he's still getting tons of volume. I think with Shaheed, the reason for some panic, like he's still having some games. He's not a guy that you necessarily felt like great having in your lineup week to week. He's more of that like wide receiver 4 flex play. I think he has the talent to be more, but he would need to be in a different offense to really be unlocked in my mind anyway. So he's just a boomer bust guy to me. Now, he did pick up a hip injury late in this week's game. I haven't seen an update on that yet, so that'll be another reason. Maybe monitor that. Maybe that would push up our panic. He's also somebody that's been rumored in trades. Any possibility of that could happen before the deadline, so maybe he could get traded to a contender. Hey, Bills, get on the phone, go get a receiver. We need help there. I would love to see that happen, but I mean, for Olave, I don't see any reason to panic on him. He's still getting tons of volume, maybe not as many touchdowns as you would like to see, but especially if Shaheed were to get moved, that would only lock in more targets for him. So I think he's fine. I don't have any panic on him.
Yeah, 86 yards per game the last 3 weeks. There's going to be maybe like one annoying drop or failure in contested catch for Chris Olave. Same things kind of happen with like Rome Odunze right now. When you're the only guy that gets a lot of volume in your offense, that is going to happen. So the question is just, what do we think about Tyler Shuck if he takes over here? But we'll address that more throughout the week if that news actually does come down. And I agree with you on Shaheed, just minor panic because he's the 2 in this offense. So if one guy's going to be more volatile, that will be Shaheed. But I do think if one guy's getting moved here, he's the more likely one to get traded. Yeah. So there could be some light at the end of the tunnel there. All right, Eric sends in Brian Thomas Jr., despite being on bye, which is just classic for how Brian Thomas Jr.'s season has gone so far. How freaked out should we be about Brian Thomas Jr. with his recent performances, the possible Travis Hunter breakout, and swirling trade rumors? On the trade rumors part, Liam Cohen said today, quote, "We have no plans on moving Brian Thomas Jr. at all," which I think makes sense. There was some speculation about this over the weekend that they were listening to calls. I believe Diana Rossini at Athletic had that quote. People listen to calls on everybody in the NFL for the most, not everybody, but most players in the NFL like, oh yeah, we'll listen, we'll take the call, and then we'll hang up. That doesn't mean that he is about to get traded or anything. I think it makes no sense to trade him if you're Jacksonville, unless you get some crazy offer from Buffalo. By the way, if one team was to trade for Brian Thomas Jr., it should be the Buffalo Bills, but that's a separate podcast for another time. But what is your level of panic on Brian Thomas as they come out of the bye? And even ESPN's Matt DiRocco today had an article about that Travis Hunter, he expects to be the wide receiver 1 coming out of the bye.
I mean, it just goes back. We had this conversation already, so I feel like I'm just going to repeat myself. But last week, I believe it was, we settled on total panic because you were almost willing. Am I wrong on this? This was the player, right? You were talking maybe Coping Corner. I was saying it was just some panic for me because the schedule was going to get better. He was still producing before he got hurt in that game. The 2 games prior, he had over 80 yards in each of those games. So I saw some light at the end of the tunnel that maybe he could turn this thing around, but the conversation really just goes back to your expectations. If you still think like he could be that, top 12 receiver that you drafted, well, that's not realistic anymore. But could he get back to being like a pretty consistent low-end wide receiver 2, high-end wide receiver 3 for your lineup? I think he could. So if you can get him for very cheap, if people are really worried about him, I recommended, go get him because you might end up with a wide receiver 2 in your lineup. This offense could definitely support both of these guys if they focus on these 2 guys and stop getting everyone else involved. They're not throwing to the tight end as much as they were early in the season. Now that Brenton Strange is hurt, we'll see when he's going to come back. But I still see at least a little bit of light, like that glimmer of hope for BTJ, that he could still come through as potentially like a low-end wide receiver 2. He's not the guy that you drafted. You're not getting that kind of value back. So if that's why people are panicking, that's fine. But I'll settle back on total panic because that's where we were last week. And for me, I'm okay with keeping him at that.
I think I'm okay with that as well. I'm glad you talked me down from the Coping Corner. Just again, it's about expectations. And going back to that up, down chart that we showed about wide receivers from Hayden Winks, I said when I reposted that 95% of the time you can just chalk it up to, hey, stuff happens. I do think BTJ exists in that 5% this year where it's something a little bit different than just variance with him. But he's a talented player. And I'm sure they spent some time in the bye week in addition to figuring out how can we get Travis Hunter ramped up more as the 1 in the offense. How do we get Brian Thomas Jr. in some situations that make a little bit more sense for his skill set than maybe what they wanted him to do during the season? And maybe he spent the bye week decompressing, watching his favorite movies, treating himself to some nice ice cream, maybe locking in a little bit, who knows? And he's feeling a little bit better coming out of the bye. We can exercise some of these drop demons and we can get going here. So I like your analysis on BTJ. Let's just keep him at total panic for now. Last wide receiver we're going to talk about here. Tyler sends this in on Matthew Golden. Is it time to drop Matthew Golden? Christian Watson comes back and immediately has more opportunities, and 3 other pass catchers see 3+ targets while Golden only has 3. Not to mention Reed isn't even playing yet. I think it's Coping Corner time. Also, let's go Blue Jays. So shout out to your Blue Jays there, Boone.
Heck yeah. 1-1 in the series. We were joking before the show. I didn't get a chance to watch the game on Saturday because I had plans. Just foolish of me to make plans and not realize the Blue Jays were going to make it to the World Series. But Yeah, we got a chance. I think, still big time underdogs, but nice to see the Jays making it there and showing out pretty well so far. For Golden, though, maybe you're going to talk me off the ledge on this one, but it's coping corner to me. Like, I'm worried. And it's not that I dislike Golden at all. Like, I think he certainly can become an asset in fantasy. He's not earning targets at a high rate. He didn't really do that in college, so I guess like maybe we shouldn't be that surprised that he's not doing it in the pros, because he's not necessarily that kind of receiver. But he's also like not having enough splash plays to kind of like make up for the lack of volume. Like, you would hope that, especially in this offense, they'd be able to scheme him up, that he'd have a few of these just monster games already. Hasn't happened yet. He's a rookie, and a lot of things can change for rookies. And we say this all the time. They can get more comfortable along the way, and all of a sudden the light flicks on and the offense, they start to get used a little different, and boom, they start to produce here. But I mean, is three of his next four here: the Panthers, the Eagles, the Vikings. Those are all tougher matchups for wide receivers. And, we've talked before too about how the Packers just spread the ball around. They don't necessarily want to have that true number one guy. So I don't think he's going to become a featured wide receiver in this offense. You do have Christian Watson back now. You do have Jaden Reed eventually. Tucker Kraft might be the true like number one receiver in this attack.
Yes.
I don't know.
Facts.
He could be a flex. He could have some big games, but are you ever going to feel confident? Aside from like just the pure rookie hope that along the way he puts it together and emerges late in the season, I don't see really any reason for me to have him in my lineup. And I really question whether you'd want to have him on your roster, because he's just a flex play. And when we get to the waiver wire section later, we're to talk about a whole bunch of receivers that are kind of in that same value range that are all flex plays that you can get week in and week out. So why carry him on your roster? Like, why waste that spot if you could just go to the waiver wire whenever you want and find one of those guys?
I think that's fair. I agree with a lot of what you said. Like, he's not earning targets. He wasn't a target earner in college. I don't really think he fits the quote target earning wide receiver archetype. He's a vertical guy that is going to have to rely on splash plays. I do just want to point out this, again, a chart if you're watching on YouTube from Ron Stewart, who does great work on his YouTube channel. Again, just quote, the idea that rookie wide receivers have league winning upside down the stretch of a season is the most harped on edge in fantasy football, but it's for good reasons. Since 2010, 21 rookie wide receivers have posted 16 plus PPR, I believe, points per game from week 9 on. This is a T-Mac, Travis Hunter, etc. tweet. I also noticed in the comments that it was pointed out that if you just do since 2019, 14 rookie wide receivers have done this. So this is right around the time when, rookies get ramped up in the back half of the season, which is just why I struggle to drop Matthew Golden. This at the same time, though, it's not as if he's one of these day 2 guys that hasn't gotten opportunity. He has been on the field. So he was the 86th overall player off the board in fantasy drafts for some of these risk-reward propositions. So far, you've seen more risk than reward. I don't really want to drop him. I would still just rather have him be like the last player on my bench. But I do understand that certain teams are not going to be able to afford that luxury. So I think he is a total panic player. I think he's kind of a total panic player. I love this, that he deactivated his Instagram account, so he's right on track to be a Hall of Fame wide receiver. I do kind of think he is a total panic player in redraft. I'd be panicking a little bit if I spent high resources on him from a dynasty perspective. But I'm not. I'm a little hesitant to go coping corner just because he's a rookie wide receiver in a good offense, and typically we do see those guys bounce back in the back half. And by the way, last thing, I also don't think Golden has been bad, like in isolation. I just think he's in a crowded room.
When I think that list of receivers that we just had up there a second ago, when you look at that list, not many of them kind of seem like the receiver that Golden is, right? Like a lot of those guys were true number one alpha types. Like, I don't know that he kind of makes
Elijah
sense
Moore.
with some of the names on that list, right? Like, but I will also say a little feather in your cap is you talked me back from the Travis Hunter coping corner a couple weeks ago, and then Travis Hunter comes out and blows up and has a great game. So maybe you're doing it again. Maybe you're going to talk me out of coping corner. I will agree. We will go total panic for now, and we'll see where it goes. Though I will say that Travis Hunter's a guy that I had at least a little more faith in, that he could potentially make me look foolish if he went to coping corner. I don't know that Golden really worries me in that way, but we'll see how it works out. I'm with you. We'll go total panic.
Yeah, we'll give it a couple more weeks on Golden, but it's certainly trending in the wrong direction. Again, he went late enough in drafts that it shouldn't be that big of a problem if he's not crushing your team. Like Travis Hunter was actually kind of crushing your team for where he went in drafts, so you should be able to work around the Matthew Golden thing. Again, I'd just rather park him on the end of my bench and see what happens.